Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day because, hey, we have a great show planned for you where for the first time this entire year, Ralph Bond will be joining us. Yes, that's right, that joke will never get old. And yeah, he's waiting in the wings oh so patiently. Everyone, welcome into the Computer America Show. So I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and so for today, the entire hour is dedicated to a bunch of great news stories where, Ralph, if you have never heard one of the segments, you're in for a treat, because today's show is all about science and tech trends, and they're really stories that that emphasize just how cool technology can be. It's not all, how do governments use it to oppress people, spy on people, how do people sell your data? No, these are stories dedicated to, hey, we're making people's lives better. And with that being said, a couple things before we get started. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes, which are going to be super, super important because those show notes will include all the stories. Ralph does a lot of work to collect them, categorize them, put them in there, and you can follow. Well, you can't follow along because they'll be posted after the show, but yeah, and that's a change that we have to work on. But yeah, after the show, if you want to go check out any of these, there will be stories aplenty, and I'm sure even some that we did not talk about on the air. Now, with all that being said, welcome into the show one more time, and why don't we go ahead, also if you want to check out the live video portion, you can see myself, you can see, actually we need to change something right there. Alright, there we go. And yeah, if you want to see myself, if you want to see Ralph Bond, then you can do that all on the video portion, twitch.tv/Computer America, or just head on over to our website. We have it embedded right there on the live stream. Okay, I think, one more announcement, just because I want to, really drill it in there before it actually happens. First things first, Tuesday through Thursday next week, we will not have a live show. And Friday is actually looking a little iffy as well. But Tuesday through Thursday, no live show, but it's kind of okay because we'll be replaying our CES coverage. And hopefully if you haven't heard that one, that will be your chance. And yeah, we have some personal appointments to take care of, and we'll do our thing. Monday, I also want to make a special note, we will be doing our CES recap, where we go over the highlights of the show, what really caught our eye, and we'll be doing that with the Pop Zara team. So yeah, that will be with Herman Exum and Nathan Evans, both been on the show a number of times. And yeah, just if you weren't paying attention to CES, that would be a good one to really check out. So with that being said, again, Monday CES recap, Tuesday through Thursday maybe no show, or definitely no show, and yeah, I think that's about it. Okay, morning announcements done. Why don't we go ahead, bring on our guest, and once again, our guest today is none other than Ralph Bond. A very illustrious career, worked for many a company, and now, hey, he's a regular correspondent on Computer America. Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always wonderful to be with you. A couple of oddity warnings up front.
Sure.
One, if you hear strange sounds, jingling sounds, and that's my dog, my rescue dog, Molly. She's sitting right next to me. I had the door closed, but Molly's a very clever dog and figured out how to get in here. And so she may make funny sounds. Number two, if I look a little extra scarier than usual, It's because I'm going through I've had a lot of these precancerous little lesions and stuff on my face. So the doc said, finally, we've got to do the chemical peel on you. So if I look extra sunburned or scary, there's a reason. Now, there's the 2 oddity warnings aside.
I thought that you were, that you got yourself a tan and, you were, I don't. I know that December and January are the tanniest seasons of the year, but yeah, you just got some sun. So, all right, well,
no, and yeah. I have never tanned in my entire life. I was a bright carrot head, redhead top guy with porcelain white skin who grew up on the beaches of San Clemente, California. This is why the dermatologist just goes, yeah, you're paying for it now, big guy.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I took up surfing for 2 or 3 years. My surfing career did not take off. I had to fall back onto Computer America. But I will say that as another redhead, the beach is not our friend, but it's so fun. It's so fun.
Well, and one last thing on that topic.
Sure.
I'm 66 years old. So back when I was a little guy, grade school and stuff, growing up on the beaches, the only thing we knew about was zinc oxide. We used to put white zinc oxide, just like here, and that's it. And that's all we knew about. We didn't have sunblock. We didn't have any of those protective things. Nowadays, thank goodness, parents and everybody can protect themselves. So,
and luckily,
there you go.
And luckily, since then, the hat was invented. It's a great time to be alive. So,
yes.
And also one more side oddity. I mean, getting sun for redheads, and I too have a rescue dog named Molly. So, fun fact.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting. So, but hey, all that aside, it's not talk about your dog show. It's as much as I'd like it to be. I have a lot of dogs I'd like to talk about, but as much as I'd like it to be. Ralph, you are here to talk about science and tech trends. You have a bunch of stories lined up. Before we get started, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, and kind of what brought you to Computer America?
Sure, I've been with the show. Gosh, I don't even know how many.
Longer than me, really. I think it's been quite a while.
My goodness, is it pushing 20 years or something like that? It's crazy. I used to come down to the Palm Beach area, and I think the show was being broadcast out of a community college.
That was either like FAU or it was like Palm Beach Atlantic, I think was where.
Something like that. Yeah. And so many, many years I've been with you and with Craig and just loved it and so forth. And when I was left Intel Corporation, unfortunately, due to a huge work reduction thing in 2006 of October, it was 10,500 people. I was fortunate enough to roll over into Autodesk, a computer-aided design company, and spent about 10 and a half years with them, and then semi-retired a year ago approximately. And so I've always been involved with high tech, from the public relations, writing, article writing, and so forth. And then I became a spokesperson for Intel, and that's how I got connected with you and Craig. And it's just so much fun. But what I do now for the show as the science and technology trends correspondent is look for interesting stories that are reflective of wonderful advances and things that actually inspire me, and I hope bring enjoyment and inspiration to everybody listening in. And friends, again, give the show notes, because it's going to have the pictures and the links and everything you need to fully appreciate. And one more truth in lending statement here. We almost never get through all the stories I put together each month, and that's okay, because you can use the show notes to go back and check it out later.
Absolutely. So yeah, and there you have it. And so for everyone out there, if you're watching the video portion, this is going to be a good one for that kind of deal. Of course, we try to make it radio friendly, but good introduction. And without further ado, why don't we go ahead and start with the basics. Story number 1, and robotic jellyfish is a spot. So yeah, I just have noticed over the past couple of months that you've been here, hearing more and more about technology being used to, I guess, monitor and even affect change in the climate, and I think that's really going to take off this year. It seems like we've finally gotten a handle on robotics being autonomous enough to actually do stuff in the field, and it's exciting.
It is. It very much is. And this is a story from a wonderful, wonderful, very user-friendly outlet called Science News for Students. So again, I'm not an engineer or a scientist by education or trade. I was raised by scientists and engineers and all that good stuff, but I just went down a different path in my life. But Science News for Students is a great, great resource. Check it out. The story here, though, is called "This Robotic Jellyfish is a Climate Spy." The subtitle is "Squishy Tentacles. Let this gadget monitor coral reefs without disturbing them." Well, of course, when I saw that headline, I said, I have to find out more. And if you have the show notes, you can see a picture of it here. You can go to the link and see a GIF and animation of it in action. It's just a blast. And let's get right into the story. It says, oh, and by the way, the story is by Tyler Berrigan. And let's get right into it. It says, to study coral reefs and the creatures that live there, scientists sometimes deploy underwater drones. But drones aren't perfect spies. Their propellers can rip up reefs and harm living things. Drones also can be noisy, scaring animals away. A new robo jellyfish might be the answer. Eric Engberg is a mechanical engineer at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton.
Hey, that's mine and Craig's alma mater. There we go.
There you go. See? It's obviously a very fine institution.
They serve a good pancake. I don't know what else to say about them. But and by the way, the video portion and watching it, you just have an image of it in your show notes. Seeing this image of this thing, it's you don't think about squishy, flexible stuff with robotics, but there you go. So,
isn't that clever? Yeah, we're going to learn more how they pulled this off. So Eric Engberg is, we already mentioned that. And then think of this robot as a quieter, gentler ocean spy. Soft and squishy, it glides silently through the water, so it won't harm reefs or disturb animals living around them. The robot also carries sensors to collect data. That's the key here. Now, this is the fun part. How do they do it? How does it work? The device has 8 tentacles made of soft silicon rubber. Pumps on the underside of the robot take in seawater and direct it into the tentacles. The water inflates the tentacles, making them stretch out. Then power to the pumps briefly cuts off or out. The tentacles now relax, and water shoots back out of the holes on the underside of the device. That rapidly escaping water propels the jellyfish upwards. And then if you have the show notes, you can see an image of the component constituent parts of this robotic jellyfish. Going on, it says the robot also has a hard, cylindrical case on top. This holds the electronics that control the jellyfish and store data. One component allows wireless communication with the jellyfish. That means someone can remotely steer the robot by making different tentacles move at different times. Ooh, that's cool. The hard case could hold sensors too. Now, Engberg's group described its robotic design in the September 18 issue of Bio-Inspiration and Biometrics. I'm sure that's a very interesting publication. And then going on here, there's a subhead in the article says natural inspiration. Says the researchers had practical reasons for modeling their device on jellyfish. Here's a quote, real jellyfish only need small amounts of power to travel from point A to B, Engberg says. We wanted to really capture that quality in our jellyfish. Jellyfish move slowly and gently, so does the robo-jelly. That's why the researchers think it won't frighten marine animals. What's more, Engberg says, quote, the soft body of our jellyfish helps it to monitor ecosystems without damaging them. For example, the robot could carry a sensor to record ocean temperatures. The data it gathered could help scientists map where and when the ocean is warming because of climate change. Now, I'm going to skip over the next paragraph for the sake of time and jump down to where it says, fighting climate change motivates Engberg and his team. Quote, I have a deep desire to help endangered reefs around the world, he says. He hopes his robo-jellyfish will help researchers study the otherwise hidden impacts of climate change at sea. And again, for the sake of time, Ben, I'm going to jump over the next paragraph. And maybe we will be able to finish all the stories today. We'll see. Going to go right to the ending paragraph here. And once again, folks, if you have the show notes, you can go back and read the part that I'm skipping over. And again, you can go and see the images and videos and so forth. But the last little tale here, it says, the robotic jellyfish is a work in progress. Quote, we are making a new version right now, Engelbert says. It swims deeper and can carry more sensors than the older model. This should make it an even better spy on the conditions affecting coral reefs worldwide. So, Ben, once again, you could tell there's so many layers to this story as to why I just fell in love with it immediately. And I love looking at the video of it doing its thing.
Yeah, no, they were modeling it after a jellyfish, and heck, they certainly accomplished that. The only thing I have to say is that there are some parts of it I really kind of don't like, unfortunately. And the primary one being, like, I don't think much about the litter, because when you think about the size of this thing, in the ocean, trust me, there are much bigger worries of pollution than this little jellyfish. It's this is there to help the ocean, and any kind of, if a couple of them crash and they litter the ocean, I think in the long run it's going to be a much better thing to have sensors like this that can do this. The other thing I really feel like they're being a little disingenuous. Jellyfish use such little energy because they really don't go anywhere. Like they really don't choose where to go. Only a few of them actually kind of self-propel. They kind of go with the currents. They spawn and they move with the currents. This one actually has places to be. So I feel like modeling after the jellyfish more than anything is to not scare the wildlife, which is cool.
Exactly.
That's great.
I think that's the best point you can make. It's not going to make noise or have motions that would alarm sea life and so forth. So that, I think you're right. I think that's a very big advantage of modeling the propulsion system, if you will, after a jellyfish.
Yeah, and then last one, then we'll move on to story number 2. But the last thing I gotta say that can be a little problematic is that what other creatures kind of eat jellyfish, and when you introduce something about the size of a jellyfish that looks like a jellyfish, you can't blame a sea turtle for eating a jellyfish. So that's my only other worry. I hope that they can, maybe make these things super small so they won't harm wildlife, or they make them super big so that they, so that wildlife can't predate on them. But I'm like, I don't know how well a sea turtle would swallow one of these things, or get one of these things in its mouth. So
that's an excellent point. No, that's a fair point. Maybe they need a big one. So it's But then again, I guess I don't know if that would scare wildlife if it's quiet.
Yeah, if it's quiet.
Gentle in its movements. Probably being a large size would not be an issue. So you raised some interesting points.
So there's a lot to it, but like you said, it's interesting work going into help these ecosystems and not harm them. So I'm sure they're going to work on it, experiment, reiterate, and very, very cool. It's this idea of the soft robot. It's something that we've seen in a couple of your stories before.
Yeah.
But having robots that are squishy and soft and not harmful is seems to be the way of the future for robots. It's not going to be. It's not like we're going to live in a world with nothing but like car manufacturing arms that can kill you in a squeeze. Life is going to be full of soft robots. So that works for me. Okay, I'm sorry. So all that aside, story number 2. Please,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, story number 2 is a lot of fun. This comes from Tech Spot, story by Cal Jeffrey, and here's the title. Robotics startup Sarcos, that's Sarcos, will roll out industrial exoskeletons this year. Subtitle, yes, but will it help you throw a xenomorph through an airlock? And any sci-fi fans know immediately that's a reference to, of course, the Aliens movie franchise.
Absolutely.
I got a big chuckle out of that subhead and had to check this article out. Plus, I'm very interested in exoskeletons and the whole idea of augmented humans in robotics versus freestanding autonomous, well, not autonomous, but freestanding robotic humanoid-like creatures. So here we go. Here's the story. And again, there's some great images in the show notes for you. First, it starts off with kind of a summary, really, at the beginning of the article. It says, the big picture. While many robotics firms are researching ways to create human substitutes, some are focusing on how to augment human capabilities. And I'll stop for a second, Ben. I've been beating this drum or taking my shoe like Khrushchev on the podium and banging away on this thing about, I personally feel a great future for robotics is augmenting humans as opposed to the holy grail of humanoid-like freestanding robots. But I'm not dissing either path or whatever. I just personally think we're going to get to the augmented human capabilities through robotics faster than we will the freestanding robotics. But that's just my personal hang up. So I'll continue on with the story here. It says Sarcos, this is the company in question, has some industrial grade exoskeletons that it is preparing to launch before the end of 2019. There will be 2 models, one that is light and agile, and a larger one for heavy lifting. Now, according to the IEEE Spectrum, Sarcos Robotics is just about ready to roll out a couple of new exoskeletons designed for industrial use. The Guardian XO and the Guardian XO Max were built to assist factory, construction, and mine workers to boost their strength and protect them from injuries. Now, that last little point, I think, is interesting. We always think of exoskeletons, like in the Aliens movie, giving you the ability to lift huge payloads, right?
Right.
But it's more than that. I thought it was interesting they introduced the idea of protect workers from injuries in jobs where you are lifting and moving heavy objects around and so forth. Continuing on, it says the exosuits have been in development for nearly 2 decades and should be ready for implementation toward the end of 2019, this year, of course.
Right.
Some really cool pictures, too, by the way, if you got the show notes.
And for everyone out there watching the video, we're checking out, they have like a 2-minute YouTube video that they're showing. And they're showing 2 different things. So, like, I think the first one that they're showing, and this is, you know, kind of a visual for everything that you're describing in text, but, like, they have this image of like a person standing there in like a yellow, like I think safety yellow, you know, kind of like body armor, I guess would be a decent way to, you know, body armor, head hat. And that's kind of, I guess, their idea of what a safety worker would look like controlling this thing. But currently, it actually looks, you know, and they have a gentleman here who's, you know, kind of manipulating the robot. They're not at that stage yet. It's not, it's kind of, in the future what they're hoping for. Right now, think of it kind of like on treads, and it's just 2 manipulatable arms that sit in the middle of wherever they need to go.
Exactly. And that video you're referring to was sort of a general purpose Sarcos company video, not specific to these 2 new models.
Oh, I gotcha.
So it's really, but you're right. I mean, it's and in fact, in a way, that video is sort of indicative of a bit of a history collectively worldwide in exoskeletons and robotics that assist in work and so forth, and now moving more and more into this kind of what used to be science fiction, aka the or as you saw in the Aliens movies, where you get in, you put your body into something, and then you become the superhuman because of these exosuits.
Well, and I mean, science fiction, like one of my favorite is you could take like Halo, you know, the video game. It wasn't so much that you had exoskeletons; it's just that you had suits that you put on, and they would augment everything you do. So it's not even so much, you know, just about lifting, but of course, for military applications and things like that. Trust me, the military is probably the biggest pusher of exosuits. So.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you're right. I'm sure you can just imagine. In fact, I know the Navy uses exosuits to help with underwater divers cleaning the hulls of large ships and so forth. That's happening now, which is very interesting. Anyway, so going on here, it says the Guardian XO, this is the low-end model, weighs about 50 pounds and can lift, or help the user lift, about 77 pounds. Now here's the key. While that is not a great effort for a human, that is lifting 77 pounds, well, maybe I might give me a run for my money. The exoskeleton will allow its operator to lift that weight repetitively without tiring. That's the key. The Guardian XO Max, now that's the top end, is a heavier unit, but is capable of repeatedly lifting loads of around 200 pounds. Now, the suits use what Sarcos, the company, calls a get out of the way control system. This is interesting. Sensors within the suit detect the user's movements and mimic the speed, force, and direction in the appropriate limb. This control scheme makes the exoskeletons very intuitive and require minimal training to use. I think that's a key point. Let's see here. Then we have a quote. It says, "The suit moves along with you. You don't have to think about how to use it," said Sarcos CEO Brian Wolf. And then there's a great picture, as you mentioned before, Ben, of a fella here in this kind of school bus yellow exoskeleton thing, a construction worker, I would presume, and says here, this is fun too, you'll like this. Both models are battery powered, no surprise. The company claims that each unit can last for about 8 hours per charge. Now, I'd like to know 8 hours per charge doing how much per hour? And I mean, how many lifting?
That is
right?
that question that you just asked. That is the same question we ask about cell phones. They say that cell phones can last, 12 hours, and then you sit there and think 12 hours sitting in your pocket doing nothing, or 12 hours playing a mobile game. It's what application are they referring to? And unfortunately, that has to take benchmarking and real world tests. So
exactly. And then, but the next sentence, Ben, though, kind of gets into a point that, like my DeWalt hand drill or other, Ryobi drill products and so forth, all these garden and shop accessories you now have with batteries, right? Mm-hmm. So it says here the power cells can be hot swapped, just like my tools as well. So there's no need for continuously operating companies to worry about downtime as long as they have a battery of these or an array of these batteries charged at all times, and they can just hot swap them out, right? So is it perfect? No, but is it in a direction that's going to make all this more realistic? I think yes, and that's why I was so interested in this story. And then it says, until now, the wearable robots have been confined to Sarcos's R&D labs due to limitations in power management. However, recent breakthroughs have made the technology commercially viable. And then there's a quote here. It says, it's one thing to get a very expensive robot in the lab, said Wolf. We're finally at the point where the exoskeleton's capabilities coupled with the economics make it a viable product. And then this next part, Ben, is really interesting because this is the business model. So we're all familiar with software as a service, the acronym SaaS, right? Software as a service where for example, you rent software as opposed to buying and owning it, so forth. What I think is interesting is these guys, the company called Sarcos, are thinking of something along those lines. So it says here, Sarcos is planning on implementing a robot as a service. Hey, we can have a new acronym, right? RAS. Business model. Companies that sign on will be provided with the exosuits and docking stations installed by the Sarcos staff. The firm will also provide ongoing maintenance, repairs, and upgrades in the cost. And then there's a quote, the EXO package is roughly the equivalent to a fully loaded, all costs included, $25 per hour employee, says Wolf regarding the subscription price. Now, again, how is that being calculated? I'm not quite sure, but take it at face value for now.
Right.
It says this may seem like somewhat a high fee, especially since it's more like a rental, and the company never gains equity in the equipment. However, Wolf, that's the CEO of the company, claims that each exosuit can improve an employee's productivity 4 to 8-fold and will reduce the chance and number of on-the-job industries. So that's the pitch. And then before the last part of my notes here has a link to the video you were showing the audience. That's the general company video on their robotics and robotics-related products.
Right, and by the way, the last word was reduce the chance and number of on-the-job injuries. So just want to make that clear. So yeah, and again, this is a technology that is going to obviously come. Right now, they said that this, buying it will be, or at least renting it will be, a $25 per hour employee equivalent. I think that's the main motivator. Obviously, it's how much is this thing going to cost? How much productivity can we get out of it? And trust me, that cost will go down over time.
Sure, you bet.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, Ralph, just real quick, do I sound better to you? I know that we are having some problems.
Oh gosh, yes, it's much. Isn't that interesting? Much better. I don't know. Did it just magically become better, or did you do something?
I turned it off and back on again. Technology is the bane of my existence and everything I live for. So,
talking about stuff costing less, real quick. I know we're going to go to a break here real soon.
Yeah, just go ahead.
I love the story yesterday in yesterday's show about the SD card, the 1 terabyte SD card.
That was interesting.
And it was great. And I think that, what is it, like $400 for that card or something? Set your watch. In a year, it'll be half that or less. And then even more so a year or so later from now, 2 years from now, whatever. How wonderful to have mass storage again in the SD card format of that capacity is a great, great technology trend that I'm very happy to see.
I'm just happy that no one yet has made the ridiculous argument of, hey, what are we going to do with 1 terabyte of storage?
Oh,
Because I
Lord.
remember, way back when we got like the gigabytes and stuff like that, we're like, who needs that much storage? Like a floppy disk is all you need. And luckily we've moved past, and people have realized that if you give people the tools, like I said yesterday, if you give people the tools, they will find a way to use them. So,
Got that right.
very interesting. And hey, 15 years was all it took to get from 1 gig to 1 terabyte. That's exciting for the next 15 years. What happens then? Do we get to 1 petabyte? Who knows?
Yeah.
So everyone, we were talking with Ralph Bond and of course Computer America Correspondent, Science and Tech Trends. 2 stories in half an hour, flying through. So everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America, more Ralph Bond, and everyone, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer. And again, airfare,
What about Puerto Vallarta?
let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is, it is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, welcome back to the program. We are with Ralph Bond. He is our Science and Tech Trends correspondent. And we're doing all these great news stories. Just, finished up the second one. And really it was obviously about exoskeletons. If you missed any of these stories, feel free to go back to the podcast or the video on YouTube or wherever you tend to listen to the archives. And it'll be in its entirety uploaded right there. And also the show notes will be up after the show. The show notes include all the stories themselves. If you want to, click on the videos, click the links yourself. There you go. All right, so Ralph, instead of actually skipping these, and I know that you kind of just said that they're typed out there in confidence, but so instead of skipping them, why don't we go ahead and just give like a quick overview, and then we can kind of continue on. So instead of ignoring them completely, it's funny because like this first one, I actually heard about this through like a Reddit thread, and I tried it, and of course the first thing I did, because I didn't want to do exactly what you did. I took a picture of my dog, who my dog is in the middle of the room, right. And the this tool that we're about to kind of describe briefly, it's like there's no people in this image. This tool only works with people, but as you can see, it works very well.
Yeah. So we will just tease this because I thought for the sake of time, we'll jump down to the next story. It's a little more in-depth, more meaty. But story 3 is about a free online AI, artificial intelligence-based utility, if you will, that'll remove backgrounds from images. Now, as Ben correctly pointed out, It only applies to pictures of people. So in my notes, show notes, you can go back and take a look and see what I did, and I had a blast with it. And the service is called remove.b as in boy, G as in girl, remove.bg. Check it out, folks. It's a lot of fun. And in the article, by the way, they cite a couple of other free services, depart.io and let'senhance.io. Check those out too. Those are really fun and engaging photo image manipulation software as well. So check those out. But I'd like to skip down to story number 4.
Sure. Yeah. So story number 3, that was remove background. Very, very simple. Number 4, next heat wave sensor, how this tiny button can save you from a sunburn. Hey, that's I know it's the middle of winter, but eventually this will apply to you.
Yeah, that's right. And it relates to the beginning of our conversation and what I'm going through with my skin treatment right now to get all these little precancerous guys zapped before they get to turn into ugly bad guys. So this is a great story. I love this story. There's so many things about this story that appeal to me personally and in general. So the title is Next Wave Sensor: How This Tiny Button Could Save You from Sunburn. It's from the Chicago Tribune, a story by Cindy Dampier. I'm not sure how to pronounce it properly, but it's fascinating. You'll see a picture in the show notes of a person's hand, and the little button is the size of a thumbnail. Very small. So here you go. It says,
honestly, the size, and just real quick, the size of an M&M. And really just to give a thing in people's heads. And by the way, someone in the chat room said, "Oh, Ralph, don't worry, you're adorable. I know you're beating yourself up about your recent treatment, but there you go, chatter. I said it on the air. So Ralph, please go ahead."
So kind. Okay, so here we go. And here, for every person who sunburns easily, must listen to this story. Okay, here we go. Things your phone probably reminds you of. For example, your mother's birthday, your kid's doctor appointment. That thing Beyonce said on Twitter. The new episode of the Romanovs, a very bizarre series, by the way. Email and news headlines. Now, thanks to scientists at Northwestern University's Center on Biointegrated Electronics. Now, that's got to be an interesting bunch of folks. Again, Northwestern University's, get this, Center on Biointegrated Electronics. Love it. Your phone can also tell you exactly how much sunlight your body has absorbed today based on what you're wearing, what the weather is, and where you are physically located on the globe. What? I love it. Oh, by the way, it's time to reapply sunscreen. You can see where this is going. This useful info comes courtesy of a tiny sensor developed by Northwestern researchers John Rogers and Steve Sue that can stick to your skin or clip onto your hat. Here's a quote. It's smaller than a dime, thinner than a credit card, although the picture would make you think it's thicker, says Sue. And you can stick it or clip it anywhere, which allows people to customize it. Now, his favorite application, using the sensor as nail art. That's kind of funny. Scientists love the fingernail as a vehicle for a wearable device, he says, because it's stable, durable, and can stand up to adhesives. That's a good point. The sensor is so small, Sue says, I often forget I'm wearing it. Yet, the device packs a lot of power and data gathering ability. It can accurately measure UVA and UVB radiation as well as light exposure. Runs on, wait for it, runs on solar power without a battery and never needs recharging. Okay, you gotta love this. And again, folks, if you're not familiar, UVA stands for ultraviolet A, which are the long wave rays, and UVB stands for ultraviolet B, which are the short wave rays. Both can damage the skin. How well I know, but they do so in different ways, according to the Skin Cancer Foundation. UVA rays make up 95% of the UV rays we're exposed to. So a little side note I added at the last minute before the show today.
Perfectly
Now, going
fine.
back to the story,
And actually,
getting,
Ralph,
yeah, go ahead.
and I'm going to go ahead and jump in here, but I will say that we are probably going to skip over to the next story. I do want to say, to wrap up, I did, kind of peruse the article. Everyone out there should go out there and finish it themselves.
Yeah.
But I did like that, it's not just about how to avoid the sun, because I think as computer users, we are all too keen on staying inside away from the sun and thinking, we don't need that. The article also mentions that, hey, sunlight is good for you. It gives you vitamin D. Sunlight's good. So these little circles can actually be made to show that when you've had enough, as in, the good amount of sunlight, and then it can start to warn you when you've had too much sunlight. So,
and you're right, Ben. This article, there's some great additional material. We don't need to take the time. I agree with you. I was going to actually suggest maybe just cutting it short, too, on that one and jumping on to the next story.
Absolutely.
But folks, come back and check out the show notes. It's such a wonderful story, and it's such a I just love it when they miniaturize this kind of technology. It's so creative and clever, and having a purpose that has multiple layers of usefulness. There are some cases where your medical team will want you to have light exposure and so forth. And so this could help monitor and guide patients in those situations as well. So, and they talk in the article about light being a healing property as well as a detrimental thing. So lots of things going on in this story to think about. So come back and check it out.
Right, absolutely. So, but this next one, I think as far as technology goes, this is probably one of the highest tech ones that we've had on the show today. So please, story number 5.
Yes, I love this one too. I'm glad you like it. Another story from the outlet I told you is so great. Science News for Students. Check it out. Story by Maria Temming. And the title, get a load of this. Electro tweezers let scientists safely probe cells. Subtitle, they allow repeated sampling of materials from the same living cell over time. Now, as we get into the article, you'll catch on. I'm not a biology expert or anything, so I didn't fully appreciate the importance of what we just said in the title and subtitle. But here we go. I think you'll enjoy this. Mm-hmm. So it says, a new set of tools can pull, wait for this, you ready? Can pull individual molecules out of a living cell without killing it. What? A new set of tools can pull individual molecules out of a living cell without killing it. That alone, we could stop right there and just go, okay, wow. Think of it like a set of tweezers for use in the world's smallest game of Operation. I had to laugh. I think that's hilarious, right? Everybody, I hope, is familiar with that funny old game from the 1950s, early 60s, right? Operation. If you're not, Google it, you'll see, and it's hilarious.
Right.
Normally, sampling what's in a cell requires breaking it open. Quote, you basically kill the cell to get access, says Oran Guillaume Gentil. I hope I'm pronouncing that remotely correct. She did not work on the new device. This microbiologist at ETH Zurich in Switzerland is, however, familiar with the idea. With older tools, she points out, it's not possible to look at one cell and follow it over time. It would be dead after the first look. So again, probing a cell and so forth typically kills the cell. Therefore, you can't deal with it over time, right? You lose that wonderful diagnostic capability. Going on, it says, because the new technique is so gentle, it can be used on the same cell over and over. Ding, ding, ding. That's the monster breakthrough. That could show how a cell responds to growth or to things in its environment. And it might help people better understand how healthy cells work and what goes wrong inside sick cells. The researchers used their tweezers to extract molecules from different types of cells. First, the team stained its cells with dyes. These glowed when the dyes glommed onto particular targets such as DNA. Those target molecules would now stand out when researchers viewed them under a microscope, and that helped them guide their tweezers to extract the desired substance. Oh, wow. The researchers have removed DNA from human bone cancer cells. They also entered human artery cells to nab messenger RNA. It's a type of molecule that holds the instructions for building proteins. Extracting this mRNA from two different spots in a single cell, 1 hour apart, confirmed that the tweezers could be used to sample a cell more than once. And then let's see, there's a subhead here. It says it's electric. And let's see, I wonder if we want to skip through now.
And the only thing I do kind of want to comment on this, and then we'll kind of move on a little bit. But I do find that interesting. I guess when you kind of take a cell and start to analyze it, and maybe you are looking for the effects of something happening, and then let's say as simple as my brain can take it, let's say there are two things wrong with a cell, that you analyze and it's dead. You don't know, if one caused the other or if the other one caused the first one. So I guess being able to, do this over time, you'd then be able to get that causation or correlation. And essentially, very, very cool tool. And I like that you picked that one up. I hope that means better treatments.
Awesome. And one last tiny little nugget here on this one, and then we move on. Sure. Key to this group's new tool is a sharp glass rod. Its thin tip is less than 100 nanometers across. That's about a tenth the diameter of a red blood cell. A tenth.
Yeah.
At the end of this rod are two electrodes. Each is made of carbon-based materials such as graphite. And you get the article, read it, you'll find out how it works. Fascinating stuff.
That oddly gives me a better appreciation for processors and graphics cards. We just talked about AMD and Intel coming out with their new stuff. Intel just announcing their 10 nanometer processor, and AMD coming out with their 7 nanometer processor.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And when you think about how small that is, indeed, it's and really it goes to show that after a certain point, I think after like 3 nanometers or something like that, you start to run into, just atoms are too big to continue to shrink it by that much. So yeah, we're getting really tiny. It's pretty incredible what these processors can do, and what this, of course, medical equipment can do. So story number 6. I've heard this line a number of times from Intel with their RealSense, from Logitech, from some of their cameras. Real quick, tell us about story number 6, because people have tried this, but no one seems to have a really good grasp of this.
Well, yeah, and the title of this story is Sony Promises Better Face Identification Through Depth Sensing Lasers. This story comes from The Verge, a story by Vlad Sabov. And we'll just go through this as quickly as we can here. It says Sony, the global leader in imaging sensors, both for smartphones and professional DSLR and mirrorless cameras, is eager to establish itself as a go-to supplier for the next generation of visual processing chips with a set of new 3D sensors. Speaking with Bloomberg last week, now the story was posted on the 2nd of this month, Sony's sensor division boss, Satoshi Yoshihara, said Sony plans to ramp up production of chips to power front and rear 3D cameras in late summer, responding to demand from multiple smartphone manufacturers. Though Yoshihara is geeked about, I thought that was a funny phrase.
It's like excited, obviously, but yeah.
Excited from a technical point of view, like technically excited.
Yeah.
How about that? Though Yoshihara is geeked about the potential for augmented reality applications, the most intriguing aspect of this new tech would appear to be a better form of face identification than we currently have. Yes, good point. The Face ID approach that Apple first brought into use on the iPhone X and other manufacturers, so forth, have emulated this, works by projecting out a grid of invisible dots and detecting the user's face by the deformations that the grid of that grid in 3D space. Sony's 3D sensor, on the other hand, is said to deploy laser pulses, which, much like a bat's echolocation, creates a depth map of its surroundings by measuring how long a pulse takes to bounce back. Sony's sensor chief argues this produces more detailed models of the user's face. Plus, it apparently works from as far away as 5 meters or 16 feet.
So, and really, we're probably going to move on from here from this one. But I do want to say that that dot technology that you were talking about, that has led to a lot of interesting, kind of accidents where that technology, because I guess facial structures are so different. Let's say you take Caucasian, male, such as myself, and you say that these these 30 dots are really indicative of different facial structures and i.e. different people. And then you try to take that same technology and take it over to Asia, where you have a lot of Asian people, and those same dots are not the best indication of differences of faces. That's why you had different people able to mimic and open phones who were not the first person. So maybe hopefully this new this different take on the technology will better identify different people. And I do want to say one more thing about this. As much as they seem to be excited about phones because Sony obviously a huge stake in phones, I'm looking forward to things like and I've seen a lot of great footage from things like Ring doorbell and other security type cameras. They're they track faces, take photos, shoot video, and to be able to do this from 16 feet away and do it better, that's a great for security purposes.
Yes. No, that's an excellent point. I'm with you too. I think, smartphones, that's fine. I know that's where the volume application in terms of just numbers of potential users or units. I get that. But you're so right. I think from a security point of view and other points of view, it could be hugely helpful for something like a Super Ring doorbell unit or something like that.
Just anywhere that you would want facial recognition, and they said they're going to ramp up production. That means they're going to be cheaper. That means we're going to see facial recognition in a lot more places. Security aside, personal privacy, whatever, it's going to become more available and hopefully better. So there you go. So hey, we're making pretty good time here. We should be able to at least touch on the rest of the stories if we want to.
Imagine that.
But
hey, one last thing about laser identification and so forth. If you've never seen what modern surveying, and I'm talking about the engineering, guys out on the road, guys and gals out on the road with the tripods and so forth. Nowadays, a lot of them are using these laser surveying devices that actually scan the entire environment through millions and millions of points, of laser points coming back. And the imagery and the accuracy of what's created with just that on a huge scale is unbelievably impressive. Now you scale that down to a smaller zone, like this technology we're talking about with Sony and others. The accuracy, the granularity, is so perfect that in terms of identifying my face versus anybody else's face who might be remotely similar, it's just absolutely stunning. So again, I salute you for bringing up security, because I think that's one of the biggest ultimate drivers of something like this.
So that's actually pretty interesting, because you come from obviously an engineering background, high tech background, and to hear what was capable with multi-million dollar pieces of equipment and things like that, and what was done in the industry, and then you hear about these press releases and or this article like Sony, and they're like, hey, or the company before them saying, hey, we use 30 points of data to identify this, and then you come from a background where 30 points, that doesn't even begin to touch the millions of points of data that we need to build a good render of something. How does that kind of make you feel as someone who, kind of comes from the polar opposite, where good enough isn't good enough? You always have to have the best data available.
Well, and I think it goes back to the classic thing. Maybe it's 30 points now, but these laser devices, depth detecting lasers are going to be much more than 30 points of reference. I'm sure there are going to be thousands of points of reference, I would think, even on a single human face. But not to burden this or hammer away on this topic too much, but when I was at Autodesk for 10 and a half years, I was in the architecture, engineering, construction industry. Friends, if you're interested in laser surveying equipment, they even have laser devices that are on airplanes and helicopters flying over land work sites, taking unbelievable readings to create the most accurate depth maps, if you will, surface maps of a work site, that then can be turned immediately into a 3D model that then in turn can be put into software to help the civil engineers decide how to work the soil and work the air. It's just the whole laser depth thing is my point. It's all over the place, doing many things in many different ways, in addition to what's referred to in this article.
That's LiDAR, and that's also
LiDAR, of course. Yes.
And that's the same technology they're using in self-driving cars. So hey, everything's connected. Who knew? Lasers and sensors, they're already here. So and okay, so the next story. Hey. Another sensor, and this one isn't lasers. It's not as science fiction-esque, but radar is also good. So talk about story number 7.
Yeah, it comes from Ars Technica, a story by Ron Amadio, and the title is Google's Project Soli, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, SOLI. I'll just assume it's Soli. Project Soli radar gesture chip. Oh my gosh, radar gesture chip isn't dead, gets FCC approval. The subtitle is Soli could enable smartwatches to detect hand gestures if it ever launches. So there's, a little history behind this project that the author is referring to. If you have the show notes, you can see an artistic image here of the chip in action, and there's a video you can go and watch as well. There's a link in the story here, but let's see how far we can get with this story with the time remaining.
Sure.
Google's radar-based gesture control system for mobile devices, Project Soli, isn't dead yet. The project, which was announced all the way back in 2015, has popped up at the FCC, where it has been approved for use in the 57 to 64 gigahertz frequency band. Project Soli's goal is to build a tiny radar system on a chip that can be used to detect hand gestures made above the device. Soli is only at the experimental stage right now, but Google usually pitches Soli as a concept control scheme for smartwatches, speakers, media players, and smartphones. Usually the gestures shown are things like tapping your thumb and index finger together for a virtual button press, or rubbing the two fingers together to scroll or turn a dial. The idea makes the most sense for tiny devices like a smartwatch, which don't necessarily have the space for a sizable touchscreen and lots of buttons. It could also have benefits for users with limited mobility. That part I really responded to. I thought that's another cool twist to this story. Goes on to say the FCC's decision actually lets Google use Soli at higher than the currently allowed power levels, which is apparently needed to make the chip work. Google originally wanted approval for a power level in line with the European Telecommunications Standards Institute standards, but was talked down, oddly enough, by Facebook, which was concerned about interference issues. Facebook is interested in 60 gigahertz broadband through its Telegraph project. Now, I don't confess I don't fully understand what the issue would be with Facebook versus Google on this. Maybe you do, Ben, but I'm not so sure what they're referring to there.
All these companies, especially the really big ones like Google and Facebook, they all have to compete for the same frequency bandwidth. So maybe something Facebook was doing because they have their own allotted amount of gigahertz. I don't know. I'm sure Facebook has their reasons.
Yeah, and I'm going to suggest we pop down and just at least tease with the remaining time the final story, number 8, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, so number 8, I just, it's a little different for us to get into aeronautics and aircraft technology and so forth, but I couldn't resist this because I thought it was so interesting. It's another story from Ars Technica, which is a wonderful outlet, this time by Eric Berger. The title is Supersonic Passenger Jet Firm Raises $100 Million, Aims for 2019 Test Flights. Subtitle, Company Says It Remains on Track for Mid-2020s Delivery of New Planes. So remember the Concorde, right?
Yeah.
I think most of the listeners today, well, certainly oldsters like me, remember the Concorde. And what we're talking about here is a company that's going to try to get that idea of a commercially viable, that's the key, economically viable supersonic civilian travel aircraft off the ground again, no pun intended. So here's the story. Founded in 2014, Colorado-based Boom Supersonic says it's been making steady technical development toward the return of supersonic civilian travel. Now it has some considerable resources as well. On Friday, the story, by the way, was posted on the 4th of January. The company announced that it has raised $100 million in Series B financing, bringing its total funding to more than $141 million. So I'm going to scooch down here and get to some other points here. Boom, that's the company, said it now has a workforce of 100 people and expects to double that this year. Moreover, the company has begun assembling a 1/3 scale prototype of its planned commercial airliner. The XB-1 vehicle could take flight later this year with Chief Test Pilot Bill Doc Shoemaker at its controls. Boom intends for the prototype to validate its concepts for efficient aerodynamics, advanced composite materials, and an efficient propulsion system. So I'll skip on here. And get a few
actually,
bits.
the next paragraph is pretty interesting. It's planning to travel 75% the speed of sound, Mach 2.2, 10% faster than the Concorde, which you mentioned earlier. And
Right.
so for speeds, for anyone who's interested, if you need to get to New York to London immediately because your son is being born or something, you can do New York to London in 3 hours, or Sydney
Yes.
to LA in about 6 hours and 45
Isn't that
minutes.
something?
Ralph, there's music playing in the background. We
Yay.
tried our best, and hey, halfway through the last story, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, before we say goodbye, Ralph, if people want to hear more about you, what you're up to, where can they go?
Super easy. Just go to your browser and search Ralph Bond and the word Wix, W-I-X, Ralph Bond, and then Wix, and it'll take you right to the link to my personal page.
Oh, absolutely. There you go. And of course, show notes, Computer America, we'll have a link to that. And also we'll be sure to send out some tweets, Facebook posts, things like that. And hey, it's the weekend. Ralph, I hope you have good plans. And yeah, we'll catch you next month.
All righty.
All right, everyone. And for those who don't know, Ralph is usually on the second Friday every month. So you can set your clock to it. Ralph, we'll see you then. Everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Before we say goodbye, one last time, Monday, CES recap, Tuesday through Thursday, Computer America Best Of, and Friday, we should be back up and running and doing our thing. So everyone, hey, catch you next time. Later, everyone.